So feeling this body sitting here, you might experiment with moving it a little bit, maybe a little forward and back and a little side to side. Just being curious about where does the body find a quality of ease? And if we're really paying attention, when the body gets to a place of real balance, there really is a noteworthy quality of ease there. And we don't always start out there. Sometimes we have a habit of not being in balance. So I would just invite you to play with it just a little bit, just wiggle a little bit, and just asking the body how it wants to be, and looking to see if there might be a notable quality of ease that comes when you find that spot. And if not, don't worry about it. In particular, releasing any sense of holding or tension. We're trying to hold ourselves in some particular way. When we find that place of ease, the body just says, oh, okay, I'm home. There's no tension required. And often there's a release in the breath as well. Take a moment or two and scan through the body and just see if there's any quality of ease that's available that you might give yourself permission to enjoy. The path is always one of bringing skillful conditions to bear. And one of the skillful conditions is a quality of ease, balance. Nothing to do, nothing to accomplish. We're just here. When we're tuned in like this, sometimes we can notice a thought floating across the mind, and actually we can actually notice the tension that comes up with that thought. Did I remember to whatever? And the invitation is to let that go, just being here, present, in this moment, this body, this breath. And we can give our minds something wholesome to do. Give them a job, if you will, that's helpful by inviting ourselves to bring into awareness something that we feel grateful for. You might have an image with it, maybe not. Maybe it's just an awareness, memory. I was, of course, thinking about this as I was coming today, and I was feeling grateful. Um, Once again, I did this over the weekend too, but once again, I was feeling grateful for um, the traffic. I was at a red light and everybody stopped. It was no big deal. We were taking turns happily. How amazing is that? People were pausing to let me in. How amazing is that? So it can be something really mundane like that, or like my kitty snuggling next to me today. But just bring to mind something that you feel grateful for. And see if you might bring it out of the realm of concept. Might you find in your body what that gratitude feels like in the physical body? So dropping out of our heads into our chest and back and heart, belly, legs, finding in the body what that gratitude feels like. Once again, remembering that just looking for gratitude counts. If you don't find anything in particular, what does gratitude feel like in the physical body? Letting it sift down, the feeling quality of it sift down into the body. And allowing ourselves to linger with it. I love that word, linger. Linger with the goodness, the ease, the gladness, wherever we find it in the body. Giving it permission, if it wants to get even softer, even bigger. We have the Buddha's permission to linger with gratitude in the feeling quality of gratitude. And I'll just leave you with playing with that for a bit. If The focus changes, that's fine, let it change. Um, if it doesn't, that's fine, let it stay there. Let yourself linger, exploring the feeling quality of gratitude. Maybe even imagining this gratitude is sort of like, oh, gold dust or something, or raindrops, just dropping into the body, touching the organs and nourishing our body. Gratitude feels like this in this physical body. Anytime you get lost, caught in thought, just come back. Remember again whatever your focus of gratitude was, or perhaps a whole different one. Come back to looking for it in the body. Lingering in any quality of ease or goodness. We don't have to deserve it, or it doesn't have to be perfect according to some idea the mind has. Even a tiny little piece of remembering gratitude and giving that nourishment to this body-mind. Gratitude, or even feeling any kind of goodness in our bodies, can be a bit challenging for a number of reasons. And I just wanted to kind of note some of them, because otherwise we can think that there's either some big task to accomplish or there's something wrong with us. Um, um, for some of us, the ordinary delights and exuberance of childhood were not allowed. You know, we might have parents who are kind of very formal or strict, and so we might have learned to kind of inhibit certain kinds of exuberance or certain kinds of joyfulness, and to not even notice them and certainly not express them. Um, and similarly, while discussions of the interface of meditation and Buddhism are really very vast and complex, um, if we've had an experience of trauma, it can be really, if you will, lodged in our nervous system in such a way that uh, stepping out of vigilance into ease and letting ourselves feel ease and expanding it, delighting in it, can be, the nervous system can kind of have a sense of, that's not safe. Don't do that. It's not safe to not be on alert pretty much all the time. So if we've had an experience of trauma that hasn't really quite fully resolved yet, the body and the nervous system can even subtly, without even our quite being aware of it, need to keep going or to keep thinking a lot, and or to keep scanning for what is problematic or difficult. We can have a habit of scanning for what is problematic or difficult. You know, many of us can know the challenges of opening our computers or our phones and not going immediately to doom scrolling. You know, what terrible thing has happened today. Um, and so that habit can actually just keep telling our nervous system that things are troublesome and you better be careful.
Mm.
And so, it's like throwing little pebbles and sometimes big rocks into our garden, and making it really hard for the nervous system, just simply biologically, for the nervous system to relax. Um, for those of us who've been around the Buddhist teachings for a long time, we can misunderstand teachings about desire or the difficulties of desire. Like somehow desire or gladness is not a good thing. You're supposed to, I was talking to somebody recently who told me that the Buddha said that life is suffering. I said the Buddha didn't say that. But that's a very common misunderstanding of what the Buddha said. The Buddha said there is suffering in life. He did not say life is suffering.
Mm.
And it's a very common misunderstanding, that really we're supposed to be much more attentive to suffering than we are to gladness. And it's not true. Um, not part of the teachings. In terms of back to the nervous system, there simply is existential stress, so that even if we're, pretty relaxed and at ease, um, kind of in the background or at bottom, our our biology knows that it's not invulnerable, you know, that I'm going to die. And our biology kind of knows that. So that there is this sort of background hum that we can encounter of, again, going back to vigilance, maybe, if I kind of have a sense that, my body is vulnerable, if I'm super vigilant and don't ever allow happiness, maybe that will help. No, not really. So it is true that our gardens die. That is true. It is not true that therefore it's a good idea to throw rocks in the garden. So, um, okay, so those are a couple reasons why it might be hard for some of us to do a practice like this and give ourselves really permission to A, do it, and B, to feel like I'm not so good at this. I have a hard time feeling my body or feeling gladness in my body. That there can be perfectly good reasons why that might be the case. And so the invitation, again, I find it really fun to remember the research that the invitation is that just looking for goodness, looking for gratitude, really activates the very same neurotransmitters as Wellbutrin and Prozac. So you can save yourself a lot of money and just play with gratitude, and we're good. Um, so anybody, anybody want to make a comment about that or a question about that? Anything? Oops, just a tree there. Yes, Clay. Wait, hold on. Wait, one moment.
I'm always expecting someone quoting the Buddha to have a book within reach. And I haven't seen anybody with a book within reach who many people have been quoting the Buddha about this and about that.
Uh-huh.
So I would think it would be a good habit for our group expectation that if you're going to quote the Buddha, set yourself up to be challenged.
Uh,
I think that would end all the wild comments about the Buddha by
mm,
saying
yeah,
it's expectation to
yeah,
bring the book
yeah.
that you're going to quote
And to bring the
and
Suttas,
read it as it is,
to bring the Suttas.
word for word,
Yeah,
and stop encouraging uh,
yeah,
wild people wanting to quote the
yeah.
Buddha like they know something.
Okay,
So
thank you.
please, everybody, bring the book you're going to quote from. Give me a chance to challenge you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Anybody else? Well, I'm going to read from a book, but it's not that book. I want to read from something that Joanna Macy, some of you may know of her. She died recently. She has been for 50 years a very active Buddhist climate activist and really did some really great work. And one of the things which I didn't bring, and you're right, I should have brought this, that the Buddha invites us to be grateful for our precious human life. And I don't have the quote, but we do have something from Joanna about it. She says, "We have received an inestimable gift to be alive in this beautiful universe, to participate in the dance of life with senses to perceive it, lungs that breathe it, organs that draw nourishment from it, is a wonder beyond words. And it is, moreover, an extraordinary privilege to be accorded a human life. With self-awareness of our own actions and the ability to make choices, it lets us choose to live with joy in the praising and healing of our world." And Joanna has taught about this all of her life. She says, "Our world is in crisis. There is so much to be done, and time is so short. We can proceed, of course, out of grim and angry desperation, criticism, frustration, but the tasks progress more easily and productively with a measure of thankfulness for life. It links us to our deeper powers and lets us rest in them. The great open secret of gratitude is that it is not dependent on external circumstance. It is like a setting or channel that we can switch to at any moment, no matter what's going on around us. It's a posture of the soul. Like the breath, it helps us affirm our basic right to be here." So the great open secret of gratitude is that it is not dependent on circumstance. It's like a setting or channel that we can switch to at any moment. Like that. So I wanted to spend a little time switching to the channel and now doing maybe a bit more contemplation than we sometimes do at this point. Um, um, Inviting ourselves to just be aware of this amazing living body that we have. And all of the tricks that it knows. This body has so many tricks up its sleeve. I'll offer a few thoughts, but then I'm going to ask you for your awarenesses. Um, we can be aware of this breath that this body knows how to do and just does it all by itself. Taking in, pulling out from the air around us this thing called oxygen. Transferring it into the bloodstream. Feeding, I don't even know the language for it, but feeding all the cells and organs and tissues. Receiving and then they receiving the carbon dioxide that goes back up into the lungs and out again. Isn't that amazing? And just think about, whatever you had for supper, if you did have supper, whatever you had, I had a sandwich. Where is it now? And this body is doing something really useful with it. And how does it do that? And then it gets rid of things it doesn't need. All by itself. And then all these different organs communicate with each other. One of my favorite images about no self is the way the body is like, well, okay, well, the liver, if the liver were to say, I alone matter, you know, I alone exist. Be like if I say, I, Sharon, alone matter, I can exist without you. But all these organs, they have a little orchestra going on in there. So this precious human life and this body that sort of works, even if there are problems with it, even if we have some difficulties, some aches and pains here and there, that it works. It's just really so amazing. So I'm going to invite you to contemplate for a minute, what other tricks does your body have that I didn't mention? What can you notice? Aren't these amazing little mechanisms that we have, that we were just given, and that we have this precious human life, and the capacity to do all of these things? Um, and we could be grateful and practice gratitude. I was thinking as I was contemplating this, remembering that Thich Nhat Hanh often talked about being grateful that we don't have a headache or a toothache. That my body is working okay, and we can kind of get focused on the things that are wrong when I do have a headache or a toothache, but to be grateful when I don't. That's nice. So the invitation of our practice really is to bring into awareness some of these gratitudes, and then to let the experience of gratitude fill our bodies, fill us, and nourish. Again, nourish like we nourish the garden, like we water the garden, and to nourish ourselves in that way. And Thanksgiving is a time for us to remember and practice. I have been mysteriously blessed beyond measure. Our life is a result of infinite causes and conditions. We can be grateful for the elements of the universe. I understand that we are literally made of stardust. And we can be grateful for all externally, beyond our bodies, for the cycles. I'm terribly grateful for it being so dark tonight when I came. Maybe I should work at that. But for the cycles of day and night and the seasons, for the animals, the plants, things that nourish us in the world, being grateful for all that we've mysteriously been given. The Buddha invites us to practice. So I wanted to bring our awareness to some specific words of the Buddha. Thank you, Clay. Um, which is in a sutta called I don't know how to say it, it's the Mangala Sutta. And it's a sutta, somebody came to the Buddha and said, something like, hello, said, what, tell me about blessings. What are our, what are the blessings? What are the greatest blessings that we should think about? And he gave a whole big list of the highest blessing. Everyone is the highest blessing. So I want to read some of them to you. And I'm going to invite you to find your favorite one and let it nourish you a little bit. Some of them will be meaningful to you, some of them not so much. But so the Buddha went through this big, long list, and I won't even read all of them, but a big, long list of the highest blessings. So notice any positive quality in the mind or heart as you consider that. Step 2 would be to enrich it, to generally encourage your awareness to linger with any positive quality, and to, if possible, enrich it, to let it be even bigger, your appreciation of that. Making it, again, remember our meditation earlier, so making it a practice not just conceptually, because we can kind of go, yeah, right, okay, fine, and have it be really primarily conceptual. Just like Thanksgiving can be primarily conceptual. It's like, yeah, right, Thanksgiving, okay, turkey, cranberries. But to really taste it, to really let ourselves feel it. And to absorb it, to intend and sense that that experience of gratitude is sinking into you. Okay? So this is the Buddha. He says, this is the greatest blessing, to reside in a suitable locality. To have done good deeds in the past and to have set oneself on a wholesome course. To have made choices in the past and to have set oneself on a wholesome course. This is the greatest blessing, the Buddha says. Here's one where we might even notice if the mind has a tendency to say, yeah, but what about that thing you did? So that's, so you might wonder why I know about that. But so this is just, so we're just sort of, okay, let it go. Look for wholesome deeds in the past. This is the greatest blessing. None of us would be here tonight if that were not deeply true. To have much learning. This is the greatest blessing. To be skillful in a craft. This is the greatest blessing. To give and to receive cherishing from friends and family. This is the greatest blessing. Again, notice any tendency to zero in on ways where it's not true. The invitation of the practice is to look for ways that it is true. to give and receive cherishing and support from friends and family. This is the greatest blessing. To be engaged in peaceful occupation. This is the greatest blessing. To be generous in giving. This is the greatest blessing. To have access to and to listen to the Dharma on due occasions. This is the greatest blessing. I sometimes marvel at the times that we are in when we have so much access to wholesome teachings and teachers. The Buddha says, those who thus abide ever remain invincible and happiness established. These all are the greatest blessings. And the sutta is the Mangala, Mangala. You can Google it. And I read to you maybe a quarter of the ones that the Buddha said are the greatest blessings. That he's inviting us to contemplate, rest in, dwell in, expand, nourish our bodies and minds in much the same way that we might nourish the soil into which we are planting seeds. There's a quote from somebody, but I can't remember who. I didn't record it. The gate of gratitude is the threshold of a spiritual life. Being liberated from the need to achieve goodness, we flow naturally toward harmony. Gratitude brings us to a simple awakening to the fact that our mundane life is supported by the pillars of goodness and wisdom and compassion. How else could my inadequate ego receive so very much blessing? And here's another quote. The ultimate aim of attaining these qualities, in this case gratitude, is to produce a state of mind that can serve as a firm basis for the liberating insight into the true nature of all phenomena. And I want to remind you, where's this other thing here? Although I can remember it by myself. To remember to look for just really very mundane things like, the people who set up tonight, they came in and they flipped a switch and the lights went on. I mean, seriously. Or we go to the washroom, or we drink a glass of water. just some of these incredibly mundane gifts that we're given that we really take for granted. We could have a practice of, say, remembering when we're on the road, being grateful to, isn't it amazing that all those people that we passed on the way here, nobody hit each other, you know, because we've all agreed together to take care of each other in that way. Um, and the lights worked, and my car worked. I got into my car and I turned a key, and it turned on, for heaven's sakes. And we could each, choose one thing, like even a light switch or something like that, or turning the faucet on and off as just a little reminder of the greatest blessings, how blessed we are and how much goodness um, that we have been given and can be grateful for. Again, just remembering, even if we don't find something, remembering that even turning to look is a blessing. I remember one time I was on retreat and there was a lot going on at home and my mind was just totally, totally agitated. And I would sit, in sessions and just be thinking, 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 and come back, come back, come back. And I couldn't, and I was doing walking meditation, and I'm agitated, my mind is thinking. And then I stopped and I thought, sort of like, I think what some of you are describing, I thought, is there anything that isn't agitated in my body? Here I am. And so I'm walking along and it's like, well, my toes are okay. You know, so really just focusing on my toes really helped. That my little toes were perfectly happy down there walking along. And I would just really encourage us whenever we find, and the poem is about this too, whenever we find something like what Linda is describing, to just take a little moment, or what Lindsay? Yeah, in terms of, huh? Linda, that, to just maybe have a practice of one more little second of resting in that goodness, just expanding it just a tiny bit, really feeling the gladness of somebody smiling at us or feeling the goodness of eating a piece of food. And this is Billy Collins, who, of course, is always just the most amazing poet. It's a little bit long, but you'll like it. The title is Aimless Love. He says, this morning as I walked along the lakeshore, I fell in love with a wren, and later in the day with a mouse the cat had dropped under the dining room table. In the shadows of an autumn evening, I fell for a seamstress still at her machine in the tailor's window, and later for a bowl of broth, steam rising like smoke from a naval battle. This is the best kind of love, I thought, without recompense, without gifts or unkind words, without suspicion or silence on the telephone. The love of the chestnut, the jazz cap, and one hand on the wheel. No lust, no slam of the door. The love of the miniature orange tree, the clean white shirt, the hot evening shower, the highway that cuts across Florida. No waiting, no huffiness or rancor, just a twinge every now and then. For the wren who had built her nest on a low branch overhanging the water, and for the dead mouse still dressed in its light brown suit. But my heart is always propped up in a field on its tripod, ready for the next arrow. After I carried the mouse by the tail to a pile of leaves in the woods, I found myself standing at the bathroom sink, gazing down affectionately at the soap. So patient and soluble, so at home in its pale green soap dish. I could feel myself falling again as I felt its turning in my wet hands and caught the scent of lavender and stone. So may you enjoy your soap dishes And may you enjoy your Thanksgiving, and may it nourish you.